Hey, everybody. This is Mark with Real Blues You Can Use, back with another installment, this time talking about blues jams, going to blues jams, tips and hints for how to be successful at blues jams, all of that, and I'm gonna touch on that in detail today. Here's what I'm talking about when I reference blues jams, and this is something a little bit different than just a jam session. What we're talking about is actually a blues-focused jam session that is organized, usually at a specific venue that very often is also a blues venue, and usually has a host band or a group of professional musicians that are used to playing together that can come together as a centerpiece to make this kind of thing happen. Blues jams are usually the centerpiece of a blues scene. This is where musicians that are playing blues music all come together to support each other. It's where everybody comes together and meets on a regular basis. Your role as a player stepping into that, I'm going to reference and talk about today. Yes, I'm going to talk a lot about tips and hints for being successful in things you do and you don't do when you go to blues jams in order to get the most out of them and have the best, most positive interactions, and that is coming up right now. Okay, number one is to show up prepared, and that means you show up with a guitar. Usually if I'm going to a jam, sometimes I'll change strings, often like I do before I go to a gig, but I show up prepared with a chord, one that I know works, and all of the other stuff that I need. I usually bring a small serviceable amp, something that is a little bit better than just a practice amp. An example is this little Boss Katana back here, this little modeling amp. It's small, it's 50 watts. It can do a lot of things. I'll talk about power and volume and all those sorts of things, but you need to at least be able to be heard and be prepared. And also be prepared for the fact that at some jams, you don't use your own equipment. Maybe your guitar, but you need to be prepared to use a backline. If that's a problem, and the only way that you can get your sound is by using your own gear and having an array of pedals and all those sorts of things, maybe it isn't time to be going to jams. You've got some more work to do. As a harmonica player, I come with what I need. Here is my Cadillac Pete rack. Also have my slides, even capos and things, anything that I might need, even some spare harps for some keys that I know that we often play in. This is what I bring, and I will bring this to the jam along with my little amp and my guitar. What I don't do is I don't show up with my Marshall half stack or something like that is going to just absolutely be way too much for a situation like this. This is basically your role, is to show up prepped and prepared, and but be ready and be open. And I'm going to come back to that too. Being open is a critical thing, and I'm going to come back to that in a couple of other points that are coming up here soon. Okay, point number 2 is to get there early, and there's a real reason for this. I am never the guy that shows up halfway through the jam and expecting to jump up there right away, do my thing, and scoot out the door. It's one of my pet peeves myself. But because of all the things I talked about in the beginning, this is a community event. And showing up early is what I do, especially if I've never been to the jam before. I want to show up early and find out how it works. I want to find out what equipment is available. I want to get on the list, certainly, but I want to meet other players, because this is a collaborative effort, and that is so important. And what is really key is to show up with your stuff and be there to meet people, buy people drinks, meet the owner of the club, All those sorts of things matter because you sometimes will get gigs out of these experiences later. But more than that, this is a community event, like I said before. And being there early means that you can be part of the community and see how the community operates. Every blues jam is different. All those sorts of things really do matter. So show up early, be part of the community, be prepared to find out how things go, and all those things are important. That is number 2. Okay, point number 3 is related to be open to whatever happens. I never get there, and even if I'm getting there early, demand that I get up and play right away. I want to sort of sit back and see what's going on. What are the songs that people are typically playing? How are things structured? All of those sorts of things. I kind of wait and see, and I sort of have this rule that I don't go where I'm not invited, so I'm not going to demand or push. I'm going to be open to what happens and just see how things flow. And when I get my opportunity, great, but I want to be open. So that is the next point, be open. Okay, point number 4, I want to focus on sort of what happens when you do get an opportunity to play. That whole thing about being open kind of carries over into that. I do several things. First off, I really am watching my volume. I want to fit into what's going on around me. And I want to see what's happened, sort of lay back a little bit. Make sure that what I'm playing is helping the ensemble. So I'm not blasting over the top of people. If somebody else is taking a solo or somebody's singing, I want to lay back behind that. I definitely am not going to take the first solo. Unless it is that the person at the microphone, and I'm going to talk about some of those little rules that happen in blues band. If that person at the microphone turns to me and says, "Go for it," I do. But I also am laying back and being open in the sense that I don't want to blast everybody away. I'm always watching, and I'm always trying to fit into the ensemble and what's going on. So that's another part of being open, is to be there and to be part of that energy of the collaboration, I guess is a good way to describe it. That's what blues is. That's what being in a jam is. It is a collaborative process. And see yourself as one of the collaborators and be there as an asset to the overall energy of that collaboration, rather than demanding that you are the showcase, because you aren't. So that would be the next point. All right, next relates to some things that I think really go along with being in a blues band, period. And they happen, they need to be applied at blues jams, probably even more. Just because very often at blues jams, you are not used to playing with the people that are there. So there are certain things that are courtesies. One of them being that every time you come back around to the turnaround, even if you're playing a solo, everybody turns and looks at the person that is in charge of that song. Usually it's the person singing at the microphone. They will tell you what's coming up. They may indicate a big change in volume and everybody drops down. They may do that and then point to somebody and say, "Hey, take a solo," and then gradually start building things back up again. All of those things are critical. Rule number 1 of being in a blues band that I was taught years ago is you always look at that person at the microphone at the turnaround. That person may say, "Go again, take another round." Or they may signal to somebody else, or they may come up to the microphone and get ready to sing again. But all of those things are critical. Follow the rules. Pay attention to what's happening around you. And again, think in terms of this being a collaboration rather than your show, because again, it's not. The next important thing has to do with what happens if you are asked to lead a song. And I take that as a very, very important responsibility. One thing, just to step back a little bit, and in other videos I have talked about this, The one way that you can guarantee at a blues jam that you will be able to get up a lot, to be able to play a lot, to be a bigger part and more of an asset to that overall ensemble and the overall scene and vibe of the thing that's going on at a jam session is know songs. You know songs, you know how to sing those songs, and you understand how to lead those songs. You will have opportunities to play a lot. So one of those things too that is a courtesy is that if I'm at the mic and I have that privilege of leading a song, I do not really ever take the first solo. I'm trying to showcase other players that are there, and especially if somebody new has gotten up, I want to give them an opportunity. And then call attention to the other players that are up there. Those are the things that happen if you're a front person for a blues band, but they are doubly important at a blues jam because those are the things that sort of build the scene. They also make you a sort of an indispensable part of that whole operation. So if you know how to do all those things and you lead songs and know all these different things and all these common courtesies, and you are becoming now a part of this scene here and this whole vibe that is the jam, it will make you indispensable and give you more opportunities going forward. So those are some key things to pay attention to. So lastly, when you are done, one thing I don't do is I don't immediately pack my gear and head out the door. I thank the hosts, I thank the owner of the club, I thank the other players that I played with. Again, that's part of this whole thing. What I talked about earlier with regards to showing up early and being a part of things and getting to know what's going on. At the very end, that's just, again, another courtesy. I want to be an instrumental part of that community. As I said, don't be that guy that shows up, blasts in, does their one solo and their one song, and is immediately out the door. Be a part of the community, be an asset. And that will ensure that the community is strong, that the jam is strong, and that you are seen as somebody that is important to that overall scene. So that would be my last thing that I will mention. So to end things today, again, a jam session is a centerpiece of a blues scene, and it's important to see it as that. It's a privilege. It's an opportunity to do some things. It is enhancing an overall scene that as an artist myself, I see that I benefit by that. And so I want to be an important cog in that. Last thing here again is if you've not done so and you really like this, hit the like button down below. Also go into the description and see information on real blues that you can use and our little community here. And there's a link so that you can see what we do down below. Keep playing, and we will talk to you soon.